Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today. So let's talk about WWE. Let's talk about what NXT has become or what it's becoming, because realistically, everything that's happened to NXT over the course of the last few days, certainly since Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and now into Monday, everything that we know about NXT, or certainly the Triple H vision of what NXT has grown to become for WWE, fundamentally is changing right now. NXT, as we know it, is changing. And there are huge sweeping changes coming to NXT. Of course, this does involve the major names released from the brand on Friday, but also it comes to a change in vision, a change in philosophy when it comes to the NXT brand, and that comes from the man very high at the top of WWE, that being the chairman, CEO, and owner, Vince McMahon. Now, of course, Friday night, over a dozen NXT superstars were released, including big names like former North American champion Bronson Reed, Mercedes Martinez, and Bobby Fish. Now, we're going to have some updates as to who the person leading the call for those releases was later on in the video. No surprise, though, it's who you think it is. Now, on the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer radio show, Dave Meltzer reported that these NXT cuts are part of a larger change in philosophy for the black and gold brand. He noted that Bruce Prichard and John Laurinaitis were also behind the NXT cuts, along with Vince McMahon himself, with Triple H and Shawn Michaels not being behind these cuts and really having nothing to do with them at all. It's just a case of Michaels and Helmsley there at the Performance Center, and they're hoping whoever's going to show up, and if they don't show up, they can't do anything about it. So it makes you wonder, certainly, doesn't it, when it comes to Triple H and Shawn Michaels, what are they thinking? What's Matt Bloom thinking? What's everyone at the Performance Center thinking right now? Their head must be exploding because they have no idea who's going to show up. Any creative plans they have for television right now could just go out the window tomorrow. Certainly they already have with the likes of Diamond Mine, maybe Bronson Reed, and other names too. Now, when it comes to this philosophy change by Vince McMahon, Bruce Prichard, and John Laurinaitis, of course, NXT lost the Wednesday Night War to AEW on Wednesday nights. They moved to Tuesdays. Dynamite's still going very, very strong on Wednesday nights. And now reportedly the goal is to return to the older style of WWE developmental with bigger guys and younger guys. The change would be similar to the original format of NXT back when Curtis Axel made his debut in 2010. If you're thinking, why have I just randomly said Curtis Axel? We'll get to that. Now, Meltzer noted that there are divisive opinions on wrestling amongst the key people in WWE right now, and they're all fighting for Vince McMahon's ear. This is the current direction that has been decided upon for now, but things can and probably will always change at a moment's notice. Now, Meltzer also reported the exact wording of these new changes in NXT, and it's staggering. It really is staggering. This is reportedly from an official source within WWE, according to Dave Meltzer. This is what they've said when it came to these sweeping changes to the black and gold brand. Quote, no more midgets, no one starting in their 30s. They want people that can be box office attractions and main characters. Now, that is crazy to me, considering at the moment they're actively trying to re-sign people like Adam Cole, a smaller guy who's in his 30s. Pete Dunne isn't in his 30s, but he's a smaller guy, and that NXT brand is littered with smaller guys and girls that are in their 30s. Now, you could argue this is the reason we saw names like Bronson Reed, who isn't a smaller guy, but certainly like Bobby Fish, an older guy, Mercedes Martinez, an older female, where they've decided, WWE, you know what? This idea of having NXT be essentially a WWE version of an independent brand, a bit like a Ring of Honor, a bit like an Impact, a bit like an MLW, a sort of super indie brand that Triple H had turned it into, an underground version of WWE. Vince McMahon, Bruce Prichard, John Laurinaitis, whoever have decided, nope, don't want to do that anymore. And that's interesting. Now, again, reportedly, there are exceptions in this new direction, one being Adam Cole, and we will touch on Adam Cole shortly, but as I mentioned, this is NXT as we know it changing. And I know there's a lot of upset and outrage about this, and I think rightfully so. I think a lot of people, myself included, are just going, this is crazy. But realistically, should this be a surprise to us? Should this be surprising? The answer is no. This shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, to be honest with you. Because if you look at the way that NXT talent have been booked on the main roster for 3 years, 4 years at this point. If you look at the way that obviously Vince McMahon perceives the NXT brand, this shouldn't come as a surprise. And it's fascinating to see where NXT has just fallen off a cliff. Is the NXT now that we see on the USA Network, the 2-hour version, or since they moved to the 2-hour version in 2019 on USA, that's not, I don't think, anyone's real favorite version of NXT. Everyone preferred the 1-hour format on the WWE Network, those great shows, those takeovers, and NXT has lost its identity since moving to USA. There's no doubt about that. And there do need to be improvements, and there do need to be things fixed on that show. I mean, ultimately, it's quite bland, to be honest with you. But this is just Vince McMahon finally out in the open, saying what he's obviously thought for a really, really long time. For the longest time, Vince McMahon's obviously always perceived NXT as developmental. He's just not been able to say it publicly, or he's not wanted to say it publicly because he doesn't want to upset Triple H. Or I'm sure at one point they did have this global strategy of kind of implementing WWE territories around the globe. We saw Triple H. There's that image floating around of Triple H on social media he's at some function, and there's a big map of the earth, and you see these territories that he wanted to pop up. It's NXT and all of these territories of South America, Europe, China, India, and you can see all these things plopped out. And obviously, with NXT moving to USA and the pandemic, that changed things. And it's obviously, finally, Vince McMahon decided, look, I don't want to do this anymore. And it's a radical change. It's a radical change. And the thing that's crazy about it, ultimately, look, this is Vince McMahon's company. He can do what he wants, regardless of if we decide we like it or not. The thing that I find crazy about this is that you've got someone like Triple H, who is a senior figure in the company, who has put so much time, effort, money, blood, sweat, and tears into establishing this brand, developing this brand, making it into something different, making it into a third brand, which I'm not sure it ever fully was, but they tried. Certainly he's tried very, very hard to make it into that. And basically within the course of a few months, it's over. And he had no choice about this. Now, I don't know if he saw this coming. I don't know if he was informed of this a while ago. I don't even know if he's sitting in on these meetings, if he is complicit. According to those reports, the answer would be no. How must he feel? How must he feel if it was me? If since 2011, 2012, really, that's when NXT moved to Full Sail and they got rebranded and all that kind of stuff. If I was someone that for 9 years, close to 10 years, had been putting everything into this, and then suddenly it's gone, it's over, how must you feel? How must you feel? Now, Triple H isn't going to leave WWE NXT, or WWE anytime soon, rather, but it makes you wonder. It really does make you wonder, and I'm interested to see where NXT does go from here, because I don't know. I really don't know where they go from here. Obviously, radical changes are coming. I don't want to throw the heat on Bruce Prichard or anything like that, but I vividly recall, and I think it's around whenever he came back in. I want to say like 2019, towards the end of 2019. I don't think it was last year. I think it was sometime in 2019. There was a report that floated around at the time that basically said Bruce Prichard wasn't thrilled on the way that NXT was training talent or preparing talent. He felt that they weren't ready, or the characters they were doing weren't ready, all this kind of stuff. It does make you wonder, with Dave Meltzer saying that this report is basically the latest case of people trying to get the ear of Vince McMahon, and Vince McMahon suddenly deciding that we want to go in a different direction with NXT. It makes you wonder if finally people like Prichard that have been in there for 2 years now, constantly in Vince's ear, NXT's not doing this, NXT's not doing this. And then NXT does lose the Wednesday Night War. Maybe, Vince McMahon's suddenly seen enough. And that's what it feels like. This does feel like a combination of a lot of things. I don't think this is just NXT losing to AEW, but I think that plays a part in it. I think Vince McMahon's ego has been very hurt by this. And I think the only reason Vince McMahon probably in his own mind genuinely thinks that NXT lost is because that wasn't him. Well, I don't control NXT. That's Paul's thing. That's Triple H's thing. They lost. If it was me on Wednesday nights of NXT, I'd be putting AEW in the ground. And maybe that's the thing. Maybe Vince McMahon holds NXT solely responsible for the rise of AEW, when if NXT won, AEW would be in the ground right now. Maybe. You can certainly see him having that perception, couldn't you? Or certainly the people that want to get to whatever they want. You can certainly see them saying to Vince, you're getting all this stuff about AEW right now, and CM Punk signing with AEW and Daniel Bryan signing with AEW, and they're getting over 1 million viewers every single week now, and they're doing quite well. That wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for NXT. Certainly, if someone wants to play politics, maybe that's what they'll do. And I think this is a really interesting time, but a sad time for a lot of people that have invested. You know, we're talking officials, wrestlers, trainers, staff, fans that have invested a lot of time and enjoyment in NXT. NXT, as we know it, is changing. And what those changes will look like going forward, whether this new philosophy and vision proves beneficial for WWE, time will tell. Personally, I don't see it because WWE can't commit to any kind of vision or philosophy. So time will tell, but it doesn't look good, really, for NXT, does it? Now, speaking of these releases, previous reports when it comes to these releases, and I saw it again a lot on social media on Friday, especially with the releases of the likes of also of, you know, Bray Wyatt, Braun Strowman, etc. A lot of people put a lot of heat and a lot of blame on Nick Khan, the WWE president and chief financial officer. And the reports are saying that Vince McMahon's given Nick Khan a lot of power to make changes within the company, and a lot of these releases are down to him. And I'm quite glad that this subsequent report has come out. So on the latest Wrestling Observer radio show, it was reported that these roster cuts are ultimately decided by Vince McMahon, despite Tony Khan, I always say that, Nick Khan, getting the finger pointed at him. And I'm glad that this has been pointed out, because I think it does need to be pointed out. Meltzer noted that Khan likely is looking at the budget and recommending which contracts might not make financial sense, but ultimately it's Vince McMahon who pulls the trigger on these kind of situations. And I'm glad that he finally said that, because I've seen so many people go and see, this is evidence of Nick Khan's power within WWE. We always hear this. We always hear this about anything, certainly when it's positive about WWE, is that the buck stops at Vince. Vince McMahon has the final call on everyone. That's why I never understood the frustration when it came to AJ Styles and the Good Brothers with Paul Heyman. When the Good Brothers were released by WWE last year. How dare Paul Heyman do this? How dare Paul Heyman do this? He said we weren't going to get fired, and then we did get fired. Or he told me he'd recommended to Vince that we weren't going to get fired, and then he did recommend to Vince that we did get fired. I don't know. And I always looked at that at the time and said to myself, why are you getting angry with Paul Heyman? He might have stewed you off, but ultimately, it's Vince McMahon who fired you. And it's this weird issue sometimes with WWE, and this weird issue with Vince McMahon. We've seen it when it comes to blaming the fans. Oh, it's the fans' fault that someone gets fired. How on earth is it the fans' fault that someone gets fired when it's Vince McMahon who fired him? If you're going to be angry at anyone, be angry at Vince McMahon. It's like those people that get angry at talent relations. I'm really angry at Johnny Ace. He fired me. It wasn't Johnny Ace who fired you. It was Vince McMahon. Nothing in that company gets done without the approval of Vince McMahon. Even Nick Khan, he can say, I think we should let go Bray Wyatt. Look at all this money he's on. Vince McMahon can easily go, no, it's my company. We're keeping him. You're crazy. But he didn't. He said fine, which says a lot about Vince McMahon. So if you're going to get angry at anyone, whether it's fans, whether it's talent, whether it's whoever, the guy who owns the company, the guy who calls the shots, that's like having a football team over here and getting angry with your midfielder because the tactics aren't great. Well, the manager picks the team. It's the chairman. That's his job. So I never understand that situation where people get angry at anyone but Vince McMahon. Vince was always very nice to me. Every time I had a conversation with him or a meeting with him, he was very nice. But he fired you. He was the one. I just never understand that. It's always just baffling, absolutely baffling to me whenever people just don't, they always are like, oh, well, you know, it's someone else's fault. No, it's not. It's not. Now, when it comes to more releases, apparently more releases could be coming. A high-level WWE official expects WWE releases to be, quote, a regular occurrence moving forward, according to a report by Fightful Select. Now, speaking to Fightful under the condition of anonymity, the official noted that while more departures will happen, they personally think 2021 is going to be an outlier in terms of frequency and the level of talent being let go. It was also said that mass releases hadn't been discussed for nearly 4 years, from the summer of 2016 until the beginning of 2020. Of course, the pandemic playing a big part in that. Now, as previously noted, 12 NXT stars and 1 referee were released from the company on Friday. This is the latest in a string of releases over the past year. The report noted it's a collaborative effort on deciding who gets let go, but Vince McMahon can personally stop anything from happening. Like I said, if he doesn't want Braun Strowman, Bray Wyatt, Ric Flair, whoever, to get released from the company, he can make that call. But he hasn't. It's his company. Now, the WWE official said, quote, "It's business," is the line being given within the company. They also recalled WWE being in, quote, talent stashing mode back in 2018, where WWE looked to collect wrestlers, develop performance centers around the world, and then provide talent, native and international, with some traveling between each territories. After about a year, that plan was slowed, and a lot of talent was, quote, parked as NXT on USA became a focal point. Then the pandemic happened, and that really put a stop to those international plans. Now, Andrew Zarian of the McMahon podcast has confirmed that more releases are scheduled to come, so get pretty prepared to get outraged every month, I guess, this year, because they're going to continue letting people go. And this is just a consequence, like that report says, this is just a consequence of WWE. Particularly, I mean, they mentioned from 2016 to 2020, but particularly in 2018 and 2019 is when they really focused in on that we are going to get everyone we can under contract. Whether or not we want to use them or not, we're going to get them under contract. And again, I understand that from their point of view of this international performance center model, because they did it with the United Kingdom. They signed a lot of those NXT UK guys in contracts, and then nothing happened for like 18 months. Because you recall when they had that special NXT UK tournament for the United Kingdom Championship tournament for a year, nothing happened. And I think that was their plan. We're going to sign all these wrestlers, and then we're going to open up these performance centers. They've wanted to do one in Japan for ages, India, Canada, all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, it never happened because of going to USA, but I think mainly the pandemic. And then WWE found themselves with an issue of, oh, we've got all of these talent under contract and we have no desire to use them, or the plans we were going to use them for don't exist anymore. And also AEW played a factor. Of course it did. The stories are out there. Brody Lee, FTR, everyone pretty much that either got their release or requested their release or their contract expired, whatever. Everyone admits, oh, whilst my contract was expiring, I had discussions with WWE, Vince McMahon, whoever, and they offered me an outstanding amount of money, more money than I'd made in my entire career to stay. But at the same time, they said to Brody Lee, at the same time, they said, we don't know what to do with you. You're probably going to be sat at home for ages, but here's a load of money. They wanted to pay just to keep him at home because they wanted to have him under contract because they didn't want AEW to have him. At the same time, they're also saying publicly that AEW isn't competition. That's so dichotomous thought, and it doesn't make any sense. But in reality, if you look read between the lines here, of course AEW is competition. And of course WWE is threatened by them. So it was a case of WWE trying to stash talent, and now it's coming back to bite them. But at the end of the day, it must be pointed out as well, and we've pointed out several times here on the channel, that ultimately WWE doesn't have to make these releases. They can say budget cuts. All of these releases can be under the guise of budget cuts, but these budget cuts don't exist. You know, Johnny Ace can call them up and say, well, budget cuts, you know, they're tightening the budget. Why? Because at the same time, they're telling people how much money they're making, how much record revenue they have, how much record profit they have. And yet at the same time, they're telling everyone they've got budget cuts, that they've got no money. Something doesn't add up. And I think that's the thing that all of these talents must be thinking here. Something doesn't add up. And it's WWE right now is in the biggest state of flux I think it's been in a long time. Financially, they're fine. But they're getting rid of all of these talents. It's a really bizarre time for WWE right now. And I mentioned this is all going on while they're trying to re-sign Adam Cole, because of course Adam Cole's contract expires after SummerSlam. It expired in July, around the time of the Great American Bash. He decided to sign an extension, stay around until after SummerSlam, and then they could figure something out. Well, last week was the big meeting. The big meeting between Adam Cole and Vince McMahon, and this was a few hours before Friday SmackDown in Tampa. At the time, I guess, all of these NXT releases hadn't happened. But at the meeting in Tampa on Friday at SmackDown, Adam Cole was taken directly to Vince McMahon's office for a meeting, a talk that was considered, quote, high priority to McMahon himself, according to a report by Fightful Select. Higher-ups had reportedly heard the meeting went well, and McMahon seemed to have taken a liking to Adam Cole on a personal level. Now, it was said that Cole was not around during SmackDown. WWE had wanted to bring him in the previous Friday in Minnesota, but switched it at the end due to logistical reasons. Now, creative pitches have been made for the former NXT champion to be on both Raw and SmackDown over the course of the last week if he does indeed decide to re-sign with the company. WWE has told Cole he is wanted on the main roster. And that's all well and good, but if I'm Adam Cole and I'm in that meeting and Vince McMahon's telling me how much he wants me and he wants me on the main roster and we want you on either Raw or SmackDown, we've got plans for you, blah, 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 I would be sitting there thinking to myself, wait a minute, you are telling me how much I'm wanted and all of these plans you have for me and this and this and this and this and this. What on earth over the course of the last 12 months has given me any indication to believe a word that you are saying to me? And the answer would be nothing. Because at the very same time this meeting is happening, you are preparing to fire 12 people on the brand I helped build. At the very same time, you're talking to me and you're saying to me how much you want to use me on Raw or SmackDown. You've got these big plans for me. At the very same time, you are actively destroying the brand I spent 4 years building. Adam Cole signed with WWE in 2017. He has built that brand to what it is today. He helped establish that brand as a 2-hour show on USA Network. He was the NXT champion for over a year. He put the brand on his back, and he is actively talking and negotiating with the man that is actively destroying that brand and saying that it's not working and saying to get rid of all of these people he's worked with, one of whom is one of his best friends, Bobby Fish. So why at that time would you believe anything he's saying to you? That's what's crazy as well, is that Vince McMahon, the arrogance on this man to think he can just sit there and be like, well, we want to use you. We've got big plans. We've got this. We've got that. At the same time that it's being reported you want bigger guys and younger guys. And Adam Cole on the main roster, he's dead in the water. Now, I might be wrong. But in reality, Adam Cole would be on that whatever show for maybe 6 weeks before Vince McMahon decides he's too small. He's missing something. He needs a character. He needs this. He needs that. And suddenly Adam Cole's dead in the water. And a year later, he's released anyway. And it's just this kind of stuff that you can see coming. And I understand, again, the meeting might have gone well. And maybe Vince McMahon does like Adam Cole and all this kind of stuff. But what does it mean? It means nothing. In that company right now, you can't believe anything anyone's saying. You just released Bray Wyatt, former Universal Champion Braun Strowman. We're heading into SummerSlam this year. Last year's SummerSlam main event has been released. It's no longer with the company. Bray Wyatt, Braun Strowman, or The Fiend versus Braun Strowman was the main event last year at SummerSlam. That can't happen anymore because they're both fired from the company. So how could you believe anything when you're talking to this man? You couldn't. You couldn't believe a word this guy's saying. And that's why I think it's madness. Now, Adam Cole, ultimately, if he decides to re-sign, that's up to him. Maybe he gets a good deal. But again, if I'm one of these talents that's being released and I'm told, you know what, budget cut, sorry, and then suddenly I hear that WWE have handed out this giant contract to Adam Cole, I'd be furious. Because I'd be like, well, you just lied to me. I knew you were lying anyway, but now you're not even trying to hide it anymore. All of this stuff is just crazy. Absolute crazy. And look, if Adam Cole decides to re-sign with WWE, good for him, but surely he has to know what he's getting himself in for. Frankly, if I'm Adam Cole, I'd be having words with Triple H and Shawn Michaels, who, of course, he's very loyal to and he likes, and I'd be going, you know what? Why would I believe that? Why would I believe that? You've put Triple H, Shawn Michaels, myself, Adam Cole, we've put in all of these hard work into NXT, and it's being killed off and ruined in front of me. And at the same time, I'm being told that you've got these great plans for me, and we've got these big plans on Raw and SmackDown, and I see how Keith Lee and Karrion Kross, who's the NXT champion, Adam Cole helped put this guy over, and he's losing twice on Raw. How could you believe anything that's being said to you? How? I would find that baffling. I would find it absolutely baffling right now. Finally, some interesting news about John Cena. Now, according to F4W Online, 63%, yes, 63% of the tickets for the Super Show this past week at Hertz Arena in Fort Myers, Florida, were sold after an announcement that John Cena would be there. Now, as noted in this report, Cena's name led to anywhere from 18 to 63% new ticket sales. The shows at Louisville, Milwaukee, Detroit, and Fort Myers all had over 50% increases. At the same time, this is why it's so important that Cena's back for WWE right now. And maybe this is why this change in philosophy when it comes to NXT, because when was the last time WWE made its big homegrown star? They can't do it. They just can't do it. They can do it on the female side of things. This is something I've been saying for years at this point. They can do it on the female side of things, of the four horsewomen, all that kind of stuff. But since the four horsewomen, again, they've struggled to make big female stars, but they've made big female stars at the Performance Center through NXT. But NXT itself, they can't make big male stars. They just can't. And I know people will go, well, what about Roman Reigns? He's in the picture there. What about, Seth Rollins? What about Dean Ambrose? What about whoever? What about Bray Wyatt? They were all already there. They were there in FCW. The biggest name, arguably, they made through the Performance Center in NXT, a male star, was Braun Strowman. And he's fired. Homegrown, not on the indie scene, that kind of stuff. So it's just, maybe this is why. Maybe this is evidence of WWE seeing this, being like, man, we've got no stars right now. But I don't think that's got anything to do with NXT. I think that's got something to do with just bad booking. Years of it. 50-50, bipolar booking. How do you make stars like that? Roman Reigns is the hottest thing in WWE right now because he's not doing jobs. Because he doesn't win a match and then lose it next week in a rematch. Because he doesn't have a match and then have a distraction roll-up finish and then they do a rematch and he loses that one. But he lost one, but he won one earlier in the night, so that balances things out. It's craziness. That's why Roman Reigns is a big star right now, because booking actually makes a little bit of sense of him. Everyone else, it's madness. And that's what WWE is right now. Madness. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these WWE news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.